Good evening. This is the March 7th, 2022 meeting of the Community Preservation Committee. My name is Jason Molina. I am the chairperson of the committee. And I can see that we have all our members present tonight. And so we have a quorum. The meeting can begin. We are called to order. The first order of business is to review and approve the February 7th, 2022 meeting minutes. Are there any questions relative to the minutes? Okay. Actually, I do have a question, a small revision. Rowan, if you can please bring that up. And it's going to be on the first page of the minutes. Just want to make a clarifying point.
Yes, it will take me just a moment.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, in the minutes, there's, I'll just read this statement out loud while it's being brought up on screen. There's a statement here that says, each board visited with will receive a packet of information on the Community Preservation Act and will be requested to provide feedback on the resources, needs, goals, and opportunities related to their area, ... And I'm interested in striking out the word goals, because the goals are really what this committee does, and we're not soliciting that from the other members that we're going to. Right? We're asking them for their need, for the resources, needs, and opportunities, but not the goals. So I just wanted to make that substantive change in the minutes. Is there any questions about or comments relative to striking out that word goals? No. Okay, hearing none. Can I please have a motion to accept the minutes, amended minutes as described?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Thank you very much. It's been, motions are made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. And approves. Okay, next order of business is discuss and vote on the CPA annual budget article. And I think that's Rowan and Bernie are speaking to that point.
Correct. I can introduce it, and then perhaps Bernie, you can finish up. But the board will be voting tonight, hopefully to accept and recommend the budget article that staff have put together to town meeting, or before town meeting, for the 2023 budget. So it is in your Google Drive folders under budgets. I can pull it up. We'd have to get the monitor to display it though, so hopefully Liz can help us with that.
And so this, we've seen a preliminary version of this budget, which is going to be put up on screen soon, right? Previously, so I think this is just a tidying up of any language or numbers on there.
Correct. And Bernie, do you have anything to add on this? I know this was something you put together.
Only that after this recommendation, it will go to the Finance Committee and Board of Selectmen for discussion and recommendations as well. So this is not the end of the process. And if something were to change, we'd bring it back for reevaluation, another recommendation. I'm not anticipating anything. This year's budget's pretty simple because it's the very first year, so we'll see a lot more complex budgets in the future when we see projects coming before the committee.
Right, and am I to understand that the numbers that are there to reserve for each of the three main areas is going to be at 10%?
Correct.
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Okay, and then the balance goes into the budget reserve, and
Right.
there's also a, it's hard to read from this distance here, but
It's an administrative expenses.
okay, great. Up to the 5%?
It is 5%, yes.
Okay, all right, great. Any questions or comments from the committee?
What was that? Finance, it goes to Finance Committee and what else?
Selectmen.
Okay.
As do all other warrant articles, as normal, as usual. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So it is an article you need to discuss, to vote upon. So need a motion for that? No. All right. All those in favor of of submitting this warrant article to the Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee for their process. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? None? And motion carries unanimously. Okay, next order of business is to review our timeline. I think I'll just comment onto the timeline. So as we are here in March, I've said previously that it is my personal hope that we can get to the end of our planned year, which is end of June, with having the community preservation plan as best as we can done, having incorporated all the feedback from the committees that we've, and the public hearing that we have as well. Also having the application process in place so that we can start hearing from the community when they submit projects in late summer, right? So that's my personal hope that we can get there. Obviously, all the work that we're doing now is getting us towards that goal. And apart from that, the timeline is tight. We are here at March. We have 3 more months to go. So just wanted to keep that in mind in terms of needing to have a consistent drumbeat of working towards the 2 work streams that we have. Obviously, I'm very aware that we're all volunteers, and so we will work our best to get through. So just wanted to a little powwow on that. Okay, thank you for that. Moving on to next topic, which is review input sessions from the other boards and committees. We had a few committee meetings already, and previously reported out that the planning board had been done on February 3rd, which was a good turnout there. We also had the Board of Library Trustees meeting on February 22nd. Steve, would you like to just comment on your reflecting back on that meeting?
Oh, actually, the meeting went fairly well, I thought. There was quite a bit of conversation that happened. It lasted, I believe, about an hour. I didn't think it was going to take quite that long, but we got a lot of good perspectives. The information, it looks like Rowan updated the CPC community needs file, and I know Jason did a real good job of getting that incorporated into a memo style that I thought was very inclusive. And I don't know if you want to read about what some of the things that were, but I mean, it's input from historic preservation, discovering maybe some of their needs, not so much for the library, but maybe for the historic commission or the historic
Society,
Historic Commission and the Historic Society. So we're going to figure out which one would potentially fall in that avenue, but and then some just general, what you would get resident comments kind of ideas out of that. So I thought it went fairly well. I don't know if you felt the same.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I thought it was worthwhile to hear from the group, and I thank their time. We also know that Parks and Cemetery Commission had their meeting on March 1st. Jim, would you like to say some words about that meeting, how that went?
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so myself and Melanie, we're went in front of the Parks Commission on Tuesday of last week. Really good conversation, really good feedback from Angela and the commission. I haven't had a chance to consolidate it because shortly after that I ended up falling and breaking my ankle. But what I can tell you is that the input actually surrounded 3 main areas of where the Parks and Cemetery Commission was focused on. Main area number 1 was the existing parks, the playgrounds, the fields, the courts. That was a lot of energy around that particular area. The next was walking trails, a lot of discussion about current state of the walking trails, ways to improve walking trails, things of that nature. The third focus area was around water and water quality. So they specifically talked about the Donahue Rowing Center, in the various ponds, Dean Park Pond, Jordan Pond, Newton Pond, all of those areas and ideas around that. So those are the 3 kind of categories, and there are a lot of sub discussions around each one of those categories. But like I said, Jason, as soon as I get a chance, and I should be able to, now that I'm laid up, I should have a lot of free time now to type up those notes and get them to Rowan.
All right, well, thank you for that, and we certainly wish you a speedy recovery. So we can see you in person, hopefully.
It looks like, yes.
All right, well, thank you. And certainly, Melanie was also there present for the Parks and Cemetery, and I was there with, obviously, the library trustees. We also have some others coming up. Let's see here, Council of Aging on March 9th. That's Melanie and Deborah.
Yep.
Right. We also have Trails Committee with Melanie and Rajesh attending that meeting. Okay, and Historical Commission. Sorry, that was already in the past. Yes, yes. Gail, how did that go?
Kathy and I met last Thursday with the Historical Commission, and I was kind of preaching to the choir, I think, because, they're very familiar with CPA and Commission's involvement with the CPA in the future, so, but they were concerned about how much money was going to be available and how it would be spent. And a lot of the projects the ideas were geared around historical preservation more than the other categories. I think their focus was on that primarily, which I think is understandable. That's their focus, so they're geared to that. The biggest issue they have is the cemetery and the condition of the gravestones, which is in dire need. So I think that's something that they really want to champion, that effort to fix to get that rolling. So I think it was a good conversation. It also took about an hour. There was a lot of back and forth and questioning. So I think they have a handle on it. There were some information that was given out that they weren't really clear on, which I was surprised about because we've been talking about it in the group for quite some time. But it was just a clarification, so it was good for them to have a presentation and be able to hear all the steps and what's going to happen. So they're very anxious to be participants in this whole process. It was a good conversation. I don't know if Kathy has anything to
No, I
add.
think you covered it all. I would agree.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, well, certainly, I think just a couple of things on that. I think, just for clarity's sake, for folks that are listening,
Okay.
you say about the gravestones at the cemetery, we're talking about the historic part of the
Yeah,
cemetery,
exactly, the
right?
historic
So,
part, yes. The
yeah,
oldest
that's
part.
where the need is focused on. And also, in terms of folks that have interest in, saying, hey, I know CP's out there, and people are asking, well, I have a project I'd like to start kicking off. When can I get in front of you? Right now, our committee is not ready to be getting applications coming in and be able to review that. So at this point, it is good for the community to start getting ideas solidified about what they would like to do, but certainly we're not in a position to be hearing them formally to
Right.
say, well, here's our form, here's our process, and here's the timeline when to do that. So we're not at that point yet, but as I said in the beginning of our meeting earlier, I said we really would like to get to the point where we're very close to having that timeline known, when it's going to be, the applications process will be turned on, so that we can get this rolling. So, but it's great there's already interest, and that's a
There's
good thing,
interest.
right? That's a good thing. So I think just as the other meetings that are coming up, would like just to reiterate that when going before those boards and committees, our interest is not only just what that committee is focused on, but also asking them what are the needs and opportunities in the other categories, just to make sure that, they as other members of our community, are maybe not just historical, but also looking at affordable housing and looking at open space and recreation opportunities as well. So certainly we have a lot of folks that have been in our community for decades and would like to have seen it all, right? And so we want to be hearing from them what they have to say about needs and opportunities in our community. Any questions about upcoming meetings or anything we've said so far? Okay. Oh, great. So yeah, we do have other meetings coming up. Also, just a note, on March 22nd, Jim and myself will be meeting before the Board of Selectmen to hear from them. We also have Housing Authority on 3/15, Conservation Commission on 3/15, and Lakewood Sigerman Commission on 3/22, and the Historic District Commission on 3/17. Yep. So that. Oh, and Trails Committee, 3/9, sorry. I already covered that, didn't I? Okay. Well, great. So we have a number of stops ahead of us formally, and I think that brings us to the next topic, which is you've talked to these committees. Now what? What about the public? So Item number 6, which was discussed in the public forum, just to remind the community, if they haven't already heard about it in whispers, is that on March 29th, we will be having a public forum located at the library. Announcement will be coming out formally through the usual channels through the town, and also invites will be going out through, as best as we can, to key members of our community, like the sports organizations and the like. So they can be hearing about this opportunity to join us on 329 at the library. 6:30 is the beginning of that session, and goes to 8:30. And that's to be able to hear again from the community what the community preservation needs are and the opportunities in that space. So if we could just dive into the document, Rowan, please, that is relative to what the working group has brought together about how we're going to frame the public hearing. So while Rowan brings that up, I just want to comment that we have a small working group that is focusing on the public forum. And so we will be reviewing that document here just as a readout about that. We're not going to dive into all the activities in that, but just giving you a sense, the rest of the team, a sense of what we're doing here. The time for the public to attend would be 6:30 to 8:30. We will have, we'll open up with just an open session for folks to come in and mingle and review our individual stations where they can get information about what is CPA and learn about the 4 categories of open space and recreation, affordable housing, historic preservation. And then we'll kick off with some formal PowerPoint presentation slide discussion at 7 o'clock. We'll do that for about 30 minutes or so. And then for another 30 minutes, we'll have a formal Q&A or until we've exhausted questions, and then wrap up with back to an open forum where folks are walking around and revisiting those stations. This is the opportunity for the community to come and speak their mind about what the community needs, right, for community preservation. You come to this meeting, we're looking to have folks write their ideas down on boards so that all the community can see it, right? And other folks that come by that see it, it's like, oh, I like that idea. I'll give an example. Dog parks was a very hot topic and during the campaign, and we certainly hear it since then, which is, if someone writes that down on the recreation side, and then another person comes by and says, oh, I like that idea. We have these little stickers that we're gonna put on there. So it's saying, we'll call them like a ditto sticker, right? Which is me too, right? I like that idea as well. And so, we want to hear those ideas. And now, of course, this is not to say that every idea that's written on the board is going to get, means it goes forward. It just means that we're capturing the needs of our community to fulfill our obligation, which is the community preservation plan, which is every year we will be bringing together, documenting what are the community preservation needs, and then we will be weighting them to see what are prioritization. And obviously, it is the community that also comes forward with project proposals after this part of the process is done. Of course, departments can also bring forward projects later on after the plan, but it all begins with knowing what those needs are first. And then we can bounce the project ideas off of the needs to say, is this project meeting that need that's been articulated and prioritized across the community? So, any questions on that part before I keep going on logistics for the public hearing? All right, hearing none. If we were to scroll down to some layout, just very briefly, there was going to be 5 tables, 1 for each of the CPA areas, and there'll be a CPA 101 table. We'll be encouraging visitors to visit the 101 table first, and it's basically a quick stop in to say, learn what CPA is very briefly, and have you check in to sign in so we know that you've here, and we can contact you later on when as CPC activities are occurring later on, and then they go off and visit each of the 4 stations so we can capture their needs. community preservation needs ideas on the whiteboards. The flip charts that we have there. All right, so if we move down to the next page. At that CPA 101 station, it's going to be a very brief, quick read on what is CPA. We'll note that it was enacted in 2000, and it funds the 4th categories. We'll show a map of the CPA communities. We'll also show the the allowable use chart, which is a grounding document that tells folks what is allowable by CPA at that level. Of course, the project proposal has to be reviewed by the CPC, but this just gives you a general idea about what CPA monies can be put towards. And then on the bottom of that chart, we're looking to have a project request flow so that folks can understand how does it work, right? Project is going to be, an idea is generated, it's formalized through a request process, then it goes to CPC, then it goes to, if it's recommended by CPC, it'll move to town meeting where they will review and approve. If they approve, it goes forward to get funded. If it doesn't get approved, then obviously that gets deferred or revisited for another time. We're also thinking at the 101 station, we'll have those sign-in sheets. We'll also have a flyer so that has more detailed information, so that folks can spend more time at the stations at the other stations as opposed to reading, listening to me about CPA 101. This way they have the flyer and they can take it home with them at their leisure. And we'll also make available, it is our intention to make available the abatement form for any folks that ask about the CPA surcharge and the eligibility around that. Okay. Moving down to the next. Yeah, thank you. So here at each of the 4 stations, it's a rinse and repeat. And this is very more of a visual piece so that we can get folks to really think about ideas about each of these stations. So let's say, for example, this was recreation. The first chart there on the left would be the allowable use chart, which will be highlighting just the recreation side of the chart. And we're thinking maybe 3 or 4 existing resources that are key in our community. So if it's recreation, we'll be talking about Dean Park and the recreation side of that, and et cetera, et cetera. There'll be some pictures with a little small caption. Again, this is folks that are walking around a room, looking at it very briefly, but the picture should say enough to trigger an idea to the person reading it. Then the more interesting here will be well, what about examples of CPA projects in other communities? So there, again, pictures and a small caption underneath it so that folks can hear about that dog park as an example, right? That says, such and such community use CPA monies to create a dog park, or they use monies to create additional walking trails in their said park, right? And a picture of that place. So there, maybe 5 or 6. It kind of depends on the station. See if there's some, really differentiators, right? So certainly, if it's 6 of the same, I know that affordable housing may be a little stretched thin in terms of different types of variety of ideas, but we could certainly work on that, some ideas in there. But yeah, the idea is to have the picture speak for itself and encourage, and each of the folks that are working at the stations would be encouraging the visitor to get that idea on the next piece, which is the right-hand side. That's that flip chart where they're writing their idea and folks are coming by and dittoing where if they have something they have in mind to say me too. Also at the table would be a binder. So for those folks that really want to know details about CPA projects.
Those are completed. There's about 10 examples of successful projects that thankfully the coalition has a master list. So I just pulled them from there. So people can look at those at each station just to get some feedback for, positive feedback, because they're great. It was hard to pick 10 actually, but I limited it to that because I can only see so much. You get overwhelmed by the possibilities.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So there's one for each, color coded for each category.
Perfect. Thank you. And certainly, yeah, the coalition is a great resource to get ideas about what other communities are doing with CPA. So certainly no limit to just what we're going to be putting together for the public forum. members of the community who are interested in knowing about CPA, certainly encouraged to go to the Community Preservation Coalition website, because that's the state resource that helps communities adopt CPA and help them with their technical assistance and seeing the program through. So there, where you'll learn about CPA projects all through 187 communities that have adopted CPA thus far. So no shortage of examples. Okay. I think the rest we'll skip. I think I've already commented through that. So is any questions, anything else that, folks want to say about the?
Mr. Chair, quick question. With the part of the marketing collateral, like you said, they will have a flyer to take home. Will there be a timeline for the first application process also be given during this process? So
it would be great if by March 29th we had a view on that, but as we're part of also the working committee, the working group that's focusing on that side of it, I would say it's fair to say we wouldn't be ready by March 29th.
Wouldn't be final by March 29th, but we might be able to share, the broader generalities that, by fall or by late summer, we could, and certainly get people to look at the website, because that will certainly be updated with actual deadlines once we've determined them. So March 29th might be a little optimistic.
No, that's a good idea, actually, not to put binding to the dates rather than to the specific, like fall. Initial call for applications will be fall.
Right.
And then review will be in something like that.
Right. Stay tuned, it's coming.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Or
coming.
TBD, or at least give some perspective for the interested parties there.
Absolutely, thank you. And one of the things that I was looking to do on the flyer that they take home with them is a call out to say, how do you sign up for emails from the committee? Just like any other committee in our town, the town's website has a way to sign up for emails from that committee. Ours is included, and so this way, they can be alerted when we have opened up the gates for that side of it, or anything else we have to mention. Thank you for that. Actually, there is one more thing, Rowan. Sorry, if we go down to the assignments, I just want to cover who's doing what so far. Okay. It's probably a little hard to read from there, but I'll read it out. It's in front of me. So we're thinking that I'll provide the formal presentation. The Q&A would be myself, Melanie, Jim, Gail, Kathy, and planning staff. The station's attendance will be CPA 101 would be myself. Open space station would be Melanie and Martha no, not at all, not possible. Okay, just Melanie. All right. And recreation station would be Deborah. And Jim, if he was able to attend, I know they already have a conflict in that time. I just put on there saying, if by some reason you had an opening that, that would be possible.
Yeah, Jason, I think my schedule's wide open now.
All right. Well, thank you. Historic preservation would be Gail. Affordable housing would be Kathy. And greeters or station floaters would be planning staff. And I know that, Steve, you have a conflict, and Rajesh, you have a conflict as well.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, that covers this topic. Any other questions or comments relative to the public forum?
Mr. Chair, I do have one point I would like to just bring up. Because it would be a formal meeting of the committee, we would need a quorum. So we just want to make sure we're monitoring that. Obviously, that's 5. So it seems that we should be all right, but those who are coming, just know that it sounds like we will need your attendance to make sure we do have the proper amount for an open meeting.
Okay, thank you. That would not be fun if we had all these folks show up and sorry, folks. I think there's one other matter about funding the so if we advertising for the public forum, would you speak to about how that will be funded in this year?
Right. So I've been working with the town manager's office yet, and we're still in the works, but Obviously, we do not have the administrative funds for the CPA yet, or CPC yet, as that is what you've just voted to send to town meeting. So we will be able to cover the cost of advertising in some town budget elsewhere, but it does leave us fairly limited for any other expenses. So we'll have to keep a pretty tight budget on the first one. And then once the rest are, once we do have the administrative funds, the next annual hearing can be much more elaborate, we could say.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. And yeah, certainly, we're appreciative of any way it's funded.
May I just ask, I just wanted to clarify, would there be funds for printing materials for the forum?
I do believe that any sort of flyers or documents that we could print through the planning department fund.
Okay.
If you want to talk offline about specifics, I'm happy to, but
I was thinking of
generally, yes.
the display posters.
Yes, those would be able to be printed
Great.
with us, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It's actually Bernie's credit card we're using. So.
Don't-
Personal credit card, no?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. Yeah, and definitely for years out, it should be coming, in my opinion, it should be coming from our administrative fund. That's why it's there, right? Is to fund these activities once it's appropriated.
Can I say that that's from the town generally, or from the planning department, or how is this going to be, how should I write this in the minutes?
It depends. So, excuse me, flyers and at least the posters for sure would be planning. The actual advertisement in the newspaper will probably be town manager's office of the town generally.
Okay, I'll finesse it. It'll be
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Great, okay, thank you. All right, moving on to the next topic. Okay. CPA funding process and applications. All right, so it's another Google Doc. So that's another working group that is focusing on defining the process for applicants and then the actual applications themselves, how that's going to shape up. So we came together to create a framework. We looked at a few example towns. So if we just come down a little bit, please. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. It's about 9 towns or so that we reviewed, and those were the towns that were called out by the Community Preservation Coalition as examples to look at. We also threw in Northborough as just for being our next door neighbor, and so through there we looked at what was some of the points that we wanted to have in terms of a process. I don't know if Deborah or Rajesh, if you'd like to comment on that working meeting.
I cannot read our own notes, but what we envision is that will be a 2-step process. The first step would be akin to determining eligibility as well as a letter of intent. Just very high level. Does this project fit the scope of CPC funding? Is it actually eligible? And roughly what are you thinking about? And that would be our first step to look through. Some will return to and say, simply this doesn't fit allowable use, but maybe next time you could try it differently. And then others will be invited to submit a full application. There'll be a simple application for smaller projects. For example, if someone needed a sign for a trailhead, that's pretty cut and dry. That'll be a simple application, but for something bigger and more involved, of an affordable housing project, that would have a greater level of detail. So we're trying to create 2 different types of applications. And there will be instructions and a process given to all interested parties that there will also be some scoring criteria so that we can look at certain parts of the application will be weighted. There'll be a rubric so they know what's really, really important and what, all of it will be important, but the things that would have the greatest score. So we're trying to determine the process, the actual form, but we're getting there. We are definitely getting close. Maybe not March 29th close, but close. Did I miss anything, Rajesh?
No, I think you covered pretty much. So yeah, the form will be a fillable form, and then there will be some milestones attached to the big funded projects. So there'll be checks and balances in between certain period of time, so that to release the next step funding and all those things. And also there will be a detailed information packets will be given on what to expect after your application being accepted, how to interact with the town, when to update the town, the committee, and all those things will be provided to the applicant. So we're going to put all of them together, and then we're working on that to complete that process, complete the entire application process as we speak.
Anything you'd like to add?
And there will be a closeout report, we'll be talking about that. How, at the end of the evaluation, a site visit, if it's called for, and just sort of wrap it up, the final dispensation of funds, reconciling all the finances and everything, and that should be the end of it.
Oh, and I should add, our intent too is that there will be a process outside of the normal timeline should there be an urgent request that simply can't wait to the normal timing. If there's, once in a lifetime extraordinary opportunity, that there will be a mechanism for someone to apply for that as well.
Yeah, though that exception also has to be dovetailed with an agreement that is a town meeting.
Right.
Special town meeting also coming in that, yeah.
And as much as we can control the timing, we may not, but we'll try.
Right. Okay, great. Well, is there any questions, comments? Kathy?
How do you distinguish between a small project and a large project? Is it a dollar value or?
It'll be a dollar value.
Um,
There are other communities who have done that, and we're trying to look at what fit in their large versus small, and trying to figure out what fits for us. It doesn't make a lot of sense if someone's, an Eagle Scout is requesting a small amount of money to have them jump through all the same hoops and documentations that
Totally.
someone else would. We're definitely open to suggestions if you have ideas about large and small.
I don't. Sorry.
All right, any other questions, comments? Jim? Jim, can you see it? Can you still hear us?
Are you asking me, Jason? Sorry.
Are you good?
I'm good, yeah. Do I have my hand up? I'm sorry. If I do, I apologize.
All good. All right. Okay, great. So that move on to the next topic. Reviewing the draft community preservation plan. That's our every meeting agenda item. Because we're going to continue to revise that plan, and because we still are adding content to it. So, excuse me. Instead of going through each section, what I'd like to do is, who has made an edit in this since the last meeting, so they can talk about the summary of what they've made a change to, and this way they can comment on that. Kathy?
I made just a very brief adjustment. It was just elaborate a little bit on the reuse eligibility, or what reuse was. So just added another paragraph, so nothing really to go into too much detail. It was just a little bit more than there was last time.
Okay.
Can I speak to that section? I believe it was in housing. There was a discussion of how housing costs were going up, and I believe that incomes were not going up as much. And it seemed to me that it had gotten twisted around somehow, and I really wanted some clarification on that. I don't believe I have my copy with me right now, but somebody needs to look at that. Do you recall that, the paragraph that it said,
I have it. Do you want to?
you want to pass it over? I'll see if I can find it. It should be about seven paragraphs in or so.
You can't do this in
In Zoom.
All right, let me see if I can find it. Da-da-da-da-da. Yes, here it is, under affordable housing needs. Although Shrewsbury has traditionally been an affordable alternative to wealthier communities in the area, the 2012 Housing Production Plan identifies home prices in Shrewsbury rising out of reach for many families due to prices outpacing median income growth. Since 2010, median household income for owner-occupied units had grown by 20%, while median value of owner-occupied units has grown only 4%. I do not understand that sentence at all.
That was taken right out, I think, of either the housing production plan or the town strategic plan. It was cut and pasted.
Okay, well, I just wonder if it's,
If you circle that, Melanie, I'll look again just to make sure.
I indicated it on the Google Drive version. So if you go to the Google Drive, it should be marked with a little, comment.
Melanie, I do have it up right now, the Google Drive version, and I don't see your comments.
Oh,
So
that's odd.
Perhaps if you want to send me an email, I can
Okay,
add
all right.
it and.
Okay,
And for Kathy's sake, why don't you just go ahead and circle it since you've got it right there?
I've got my marking pen here.
Back here.
All right.
And I'll just double check it, and then I can let you know where it came from too. I'll check. the
Yeah, it just
sources.
didn't make sense to me. I'm not a good mathematical person, but it sounded like it was reversed.
Thank you, though.
All right. Pass it along.
I'm enjoying this. This is great. I mean, seriously, it's been 2+ years.
Yeah, we don't have to Lysol them.
I had a couple other comments too.
Is it affordable housing?
No. I think the one I was looking at was, let me think. Deb, I think it was one you wrote. I forget which one. I think it was the second section.
No, that was,
It referred to town council. And I said, well, we don't really have a town council as such. We have town meeting. I just wondered what that was all about.
In recreation or in the application process? Because Steve started that, and there might have been something in it.
Yeah, it might have been in recreation, come to think of it, yeah.
I
Well,
remember
I
reading
think
something
you're
about
probably
town
referencing, we do
council.
have a town council
Yeah.
that would be reviewing pretty much all the documents that we have for regulation requirements. So the town does retain town council,
Okay, so by that you mean our legal counsel?
our legal counsel.
Okay, so that would be a totally different thing. And I think that's spelled differently. Instead of CIL, it's SEL, I think.
Well,
I don't
maybe
know.
this would be a good time if Mr. Chairman, I do know that you've asked that staff go through and read for these kind of small errors, kind of grammar, spelling, all these things. So I will be doing that over the next month. And just making a red line version for you all to review, of course, but I can kind of read for those smaller things as
Okay.
well.
I tried very hard not to look at those things. When I copy it, I could get really in the weeds. And I tried not to do that. So I only like 3 comments for the whole document, and I thought that was really good. The one other thing I'd like to mention is that we, in our application forms, ask for maintenance information on a project. How is it going to be maintained? And I think we have to stress somewhere that we don't pay for maintenance. We just want to know that it's going to be in good hands when we finish a project. So that should be in there somewhere, I think, in those terms. What do you think?
It's a great idea. We
Okay.
should certainly ask about the sustainability of any project, whether it's through maintenance or if it's something that has ongoing operating costs.
Yeah. Somebody has to be
Right.
identified. Yeah,
Absolutely.
okay.
Thank you. Okay, and Gail, I know you had an edit. Section 2.
Section 2,
Yeah, that went over to Rowan.
I sent it to Rowan for review, and I don't know if anybody else has read it. Melanie and I had a little discussion about it today, so we can look at it again, but
Can you just give, what is a brief, what's changed for section 2, high level?
the only thing that's changed, I did some editing or fact checking, mainly with the Indians, because there was conflicting stories about the Indians in the area and how detrimental they were to the settlers. So I kind of clean that language up. Trying to remember what else I cleaned up. Do you remember there was something
I
else?
remember that part, yeah.
I'd have to look at it again. I don't have it in front of me, but
So we're referring to this was the history section,
it's
section two is
a
history section.
community
and-
overview of the history of Shrewsbury.
Right, and so it was just talking about the,
Is talking about the beginning of Shrewsbury, their vision, and then kind of taking a quick timeline through, and how, what factors in Shrewsbury influence the development of Shrewsbury.
Okay.
The Indians, the location, manufacturing and commercial, the mail delivery, the road, the location of the roads, things like that. So I don't know if that fits what you were
right,
anticipating.
I'm just,
Okay,
about the Native American settlers
yeah, exactly.
first, and then.
Yes, the
history
Native
of-
American settlers.
until the other settlers came
The
in.
Nipmuc.
All right, thank you, just for clarity. Any other sections that were updated and submitted to Rowan? Well, if I don't hear any, that means there weren't any more. Jim, was there, I know we had a little email exchange. Anything submitted this time?
There was not an edit so much, Jason, more of a formatting that you suggested at our last meeting. So you asked that I take a certain section and move it up in the doc, that's all I did. I didn't
Oh, right.
change anything substantial to it, I just moved that edit based on your suggestion.
Okay, thank you, yes. That was an item that was in the goals, I believe, and it was moved in, and said, I could move it to the needs section, because it was elaborative about recreation, from a survey that was conducted from the
Correct.
recreation side.
Exactly right, Jason, yep.
All right, well, great. I mean, I know that at this point, I think we're running out of steam and adding to the narrative piece of the community preservation plan, and I get that, I understand, it will be a living document. We will always be looking to revise it, but if something comes up that you see, like obviously Melanie, you've honed in on a couple things, certainly, follow that through with the original author or submit it to Rowan in terms of edits. From here, Rowan, I think you're taking the document to look through in terms of that side of it, and also layering in a design element to the document, including pictures, to give a fuller picture of it. We also have pictures that were uploaded to the Google Drive, so obviously a trove to go to, except for affordable housing. So anything you have for affordable housing will be great. I just didn't have any originally, so. Okay. All right, well, great. So we will be revisiting the plan from a needs and a goals perspective after the public forum and the last of the board and committee meetings, because we will need to bring together all those needs that Rowan's putting into the spreadsheet, look at it and saying, of all these needs, what's the goals that we want to synergize down to, like 4 or 5 goals. So that's something that we, again, you can be looking at into the April timeframe. Will probably start and probably carry into the May meeting. Okay. Anything else? Any other comments about the community preservation plan before we move on?
Oh, one thing.
Yes.
We make reference to the workshops,
The application workshops?
application workshops, and also the manual was referred to, referring, people who are interested to an instruction manual, which does not exist at this point. So we just have to keep that in the back of our minds. We have to write that someday.
I think as we get closer to a finished application and process, we'll probably go back and revise that section based on what we finally come up with or decide upon.
Okay.
It gives us a good place to start.
Right.
Yeah, I think the manual piece is something that I discovered when I was looking at a prior community, how that process worked, and I actually Rowan has a copy of that that we can use.
By any chance?
I can't remember which town it was.
I believe it was. I think it was Watertown.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think it probably was, yeah. So that's there, and it looks pretty vanilla. We can probably just use it and just change Shrewsbury's name wherever it needs to be.
You know, I thought that the same thing when I looked at it. Oh, a little whiteout will be good. They won't mind, they'll never know.
We'll have some sort of instruction document, whether it's
Yeah.
a manual or what we decide to call it.
Okay.
That's exactly what we need in it.
Mhm.
The section's pretty good, we'll just have to update it a little bit based on our final product of the timeline and formal application documents.
Mhm.
All right, great. Okay, so any other comments about the plan?
One of the quick follow-up on our previous conversations related to the application process and the applicants having conversations with the respective board members. Is that like if they're proposing like that falls under the sustainment part too, right? If it's also in the realm of like parks and recreations, is the applicant going to discuss with this one person at a parks and recreation to discuss all the ideas and get their feedback so before they're putting in the application? So
Right.
did we identify any of those like a
No, I
point
don't
of
think we have clarity on that yet, but I think that, so just, what's the topic is that in terms of the application, we're seeing that some communities appear to say, before you come to CPC, you need to go through this board first. Right? If it's a project that's related to recreation, go to the Parks and Cemetery Commission as an example, right? Or historic preservation, or, et cetera. Don't know necessarily if that, I personally I don't want to sign on to that in my head, because we may not need to always do that. And so I'm thinking personally that let's be flexible about that, because sometimes it might be a very small project that, we just want to know that someone's going to take care of this trail after you've created said sign, or it's affordable housing, and who's going to take on the in terms of like applicants to the to the facility, et cetera, right? So you may need a lot more people to go through. So that's why I see a challenge to saying always go through the other boards.
Yeah, I'd like to see us after that stage one, the eligibilities / letter of intent, that whatever our response is to that, to a potential applicant, is that there's some feedback that this sounds like a great idea, please do fill out the entire application, but when you do, you might want to talk to this particular board, or if we tell someone this doesn't really fit, but in time it might, you should talk to, I'd like to give them feedback beyond just, yes, proceed to step 2, or no. I think that it's whoever goes to the trouble to at least try step 1 needs some sort of feedback from us.
Mhm. Another thing I see there is some of those boards and committees and so on, a lot of places, they'll only meet once a month. It might be, scheduling might be really difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't count on coming into this building and finding somebody from, say, conservation or something. You just don't know whether they're gonna be here or not, or, it's, it might be difficult. So we just have to play that by ear and see how we can work it out, I guess.
If I may just interject, it does seem like a good opportunity to maintain communication between what people are proposing and town groups and various departments of the town, so that everybody understands what's going on and is able to pitch in and add advice and do some planning beforehand. So some mechanism to increase that opportunity for communication would be good. And there are, I hate to say this because it will possibly increase the work of town staff, but for conservation, for example, we have a conservation agent in the engineering department who is always here to talk to people about conservation business.
She's a full-time, she or he is a
He.
full-time employee?
He's a full-time employee,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yes, it is. It is.
I mean, I think ultimately too, a quality application that has a chance of getting moved on to town meeting would have to have some input. Someone can't sit alone in their garage and come up with an idea and I'm gonna build this, whatever, without knowing, does it fit zoning rules? Does it fit with conservation, or does it fit the needs of, is it legal? So I think that a complete application won't be created in a vacuum. And if it seems that they're going that way, I hope that there's a point where we could steer people to the right, towards the right people they should be talking to. I hope.
Right, but I think it also
Jason, if I
comes
may.
back to that maintenance piece as well. Since CPA cannot pay for maintenance, well, someone's gotta pick up that tab. And so I think that's where, you would need somebody to, to say, yeah, I'm willing to accept that.
That'll have to be a question that's asked. If you build it or create it, how will you take care of it? And, if they don't have a good answer, that might not be a project that moves forward in a particular year.
I think Jim has some comments on that.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Just kind of a similar thread, and Melanie can chime in too, happened at our meeting with the Parks and Cemetery Commission. The question was raised, so, what is included when it comes to an idea for a project? Like, is there feasibility studies included? Is there design time included? The mention about, at least in the Parks and Cemetery, the staff is quite limited. So is the expectation that that is funded outside of coming to our little group? Or if that's, how does that all happen? Because just to what Deborah was saying is that you don't want just something that's not vetted out appropriately, but how does that actually happen? Is that something that has to be done within the town staff, or is that something that is done by part of the CPC? That was kind of a question about where does that line begin and end?
Right, and I think that's what that coordination piece, Martha, you're bringing up as well, right? So yeah, certainly we don't have answers tonight on that, and I think we will, something we'd be working through in the working group to kind of try to answer that, and see how other communities, how they've done this. But I think it's pretty clear, without having an answer, is maintenance is not CPA funded. We know that. Someone's gonna pick up the tab. How that happens, TBD.
And we can put that in the instructions. We can have a cheat sheet for applicants of how to write a successful application, and stress it can't happen without a plan for what happens after. Hopefully we'll get it. If we don't get it right the first time, we'll fix it.
Living document.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you for bringing that up. Any other questions, comments? Okay. All right, moving on to next steps. So I do wanted to, and it kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier in the meeting, but I did get a request from a potential future applicant who wanted to see if it was an opportunity to come before the CPC to present their idea. And I explained that the committee is not ready to hear out applicants at this time. We're certainly in our first year. We have to focus on the plan and get through creating the application, the process to go with that, and sometime in probably late summer, early fall, thereabouts, will be the time that you can submit those applications. Is what our current thinking is. And so, they were willing to, to move forward with that understanding, with that asterisk on coming forward, so that there would be no implication of saying, just because you came here means that you're now formally applying. It doesn't mean anything. It just means you're sharing your information, you're giving an idea. And I just wanted to see what the committee feels about opening the door to, if anybody who wanted to come before it now, and before we have the application, to see if you're willing to hear them out.
I would think without an application process in place, it might be premature. And we should keep sharing as much as we can our timeline of when we hope to have the application formal and complete. But I'd be concerned that others, even though we would know this doesn't give anyone a leg up, this doesn't put them first in line, the perception would be that, oh, they're already there, I've got to get there. It might be time to let us do our work and get our ducks in a row before we invite folks who I can't wait to hear the ideas, and the public forum would absolutely be a great place to do that. But I'd hate to have someone try to share something concrete before we have the application in place.
Okay. Any others? Any other opinions?
So, I've been talking to people privately in an encouraging way, and I hope that's not out of line. But I think, the more encouragement you give people who want to start a project, the better off, they are in the long run. I hope we're all talking to people about things like that. But you make a good point about not making it seem like that they have an unusual advantage.
And there are already folks at different issues in town that I've heard, or seen on social media, oh, the CPC can take care of that. We can't take care of anything yet. And we're excited about the projects we'll have before us, but we can't fund anything yet.
Well, another thing is I feel that people really have no idea about what the limitations are.
Right.
I've had people suggest all kinds of things, and no, we don't do that. What were you thinking? Look at the list again. Yeah.
So they should come to the public forum to hear out
They
what,
should come to the
what is
public
allowed.
forum, to say, we are not going to hold a parade for you. No, no matter how worthy it is, that's not what we do. There will be no performance items. So. People have a lot of odd ideas about, just what is covered.
For those who cannot come to the public forum, will we have a mechanism for sharing ideas?
So, there's our planning department staff's email address to be able to, forward it over any ideas. So that is an opportunity that I think we should probably make that posted on the website saying, have you missed the public forum? Don't worry, here's a way to submit an idea. Probably a link to the video that I'm hoping we'll be able to record the public forum if that's a possibility. I know we're trying to see if that can be done, so they can hear that. It is?
Awesome,
Good?
yeah.
Okay, so it will be recorded.
At least you could do the presentation part.
Probably just
That's
that.
basically it.
Yeah, and I think long-term, CPC will have a section on the town's website that people can go to get information as well. So public forum information would be posted there, and just general information will flow through that site. So I think it's difficult, like with anything, when you first start out, things are not in place. So I agree 100% with not opening the door for ideas, because we're in no position whatsoever to even understand how to move forward with that at this point. So I think, walking before we start running is probably to our advantage.
Okay. Kathy?
We heard this brought up at Historic Preservation, and I think the reason it was asked was because a particular project, when they try to go forward to talk to someone about it, the first thing they're asked is, have you talked to community preservation? So they're trying to get a checkbox so they can get other things done. So what you're saying makes perfect sense, and I'm looking at it differently, but I think we need to have a mechanism in place that we can say to these people, whether it's in writing, we're not we're not doing this, we're not in a position to even meet with you until we've done all these other things, so they can go back and say, I tried, it's too soon to meet with community preservation. So I think we've got to be able to help them, but not put ourselves in a spot.
Yeah, we're sort of not open for business yet.
Exactly, and we need something in writing maybe that says that.
That's a good idea.
Because a lot of people are saying, let CPC
Yeah.
take care of that, and we're not ready to take care of it. So someone needs to take care of these things in the interim.
Okay, any other opinions on this, or we can move on to perhaps, say, I don't think we have to take a vote on this, to write a response, but I think it's a general response, that the committee at this time is not seeking any applicants at this time. We are not in a position to be able to hear the public needs at this time for projects. We encourage you to come to the public forum to submit to it, to record the particular need that you want to put onto the said station relative to community preservation. If you cannot make that meeting, there's certainly an avenue to submit that to the public forum, unless you're already a member of one of the committees that are part of CPC, so you can certainly have that channeled through as well. Again, it is recording just that there's a need in our community, and that it hopefully becomes fulfilled through a project later down the line when that process is open.
Maybe there's a standard email response or something, a placeholder on the website. So it's not that we don't want to hear these ideas yet, but some folks, if they're looking at other communities, they may not realize that we're just getting started.
Right.
Just because it was approved at town meeting, it doesn't mean that we suddenly open the doors ready for business, that we're writing our plan, we're writing our application, and that we hope by fall, we'll be able to entertain applications between fall and the end of the year for next year, next fiscal year. If we can tell people that much, that might make them feel a little bit better.
Okay. So I'll draft that note and send it to you for review as my
Sure.
vice chair as well?
Be happy to look.
Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, any other thoughts about that before I move on? Yes.
Just one. In the interim, perhaps send them to the coalition website to do a quick check as to whether their idea meets CPA criteria.
That would be great. At least we could give them something. We could give them that tool. It's a great idea.
Do we have the, Rowan, do we have the allowable use chart on our website?
I do not think so, but I can certainly put it up
Okay.
right away.
And maybe include that,
Yeah.
allowable use.
Yeah,
I'm jotting a few
I
things
could even-
down.
okay, thank
To
you.
go on the website.
Me
That's
as well,
exactly what I'm
me
doing
as
right now,
well.
so.
Thank
I
you.
could even put, I know I put together a very loose timeline as well of what our first 6 months will be, so I can certainly post with your review that on the website as well, just to give folks an idea of what we're doing right now.
Okay.
Yeah. Feel free to send any other ideas to me as well. I can put them up.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And last call.
Jason, I kind of had my hand up.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay, it's okay. As far as, a response back to members of the community that, asked for, I think you were talking about documenting certain, gates that we're currently at or certain milestones that we're currently hitting. Maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea, as Martha mentioned earlier, to make sure that we have the full scope of what it is that we have to hit before ready to take, so somebody can see that timeline, they can see the little arrow, and here we're here today, we've got this much further to go. Just so that they can understand that it's not something that's gonna happen tomorrow, it's not something that's gonna happen, a month from now, but then to what Deb said, it's something that we hope to see the light of the tunnel here, and then start taking applications from there.
Okay, so just giving a timeline on our website perhaps that says what CPC is up to right now?
Yeah,
and
or
what's
even if
next?
you're gonna do an email response, have it be part of an email response, whereas, again, either one, just so the communication's out there to the community.
All right, all great ideas. Thank you very much for that. Okay. Last call. Rajesh? No? Okay. All right, thank you for that. All right, moving on. Also within next steps, something that kind of struck me as I was looking at looking at obviously our year, what year it is, and also looking back at our town and realizing, we're going to be celebrating our 300th anniversary in 2027, and considering that CPA really is about historical preservation, preserving the past, and enriching our future from that project's perspective, and it really is about community. I was thinking that perhaps the 300th anniversary is a great opportunity for marketing CPA and saying, well, these are opportunities that, what can we do for helping our town celebrate 300 years, right? And so one of the things that came to my mind personally is saying, hey, what happened to the charter that says, you number of residents, leaving Marlborough and then wanted to form Shrewsbury, here's your tract of land, legally from from, the UK, right, at that point. So what, where that charter went, as an example, like, is that preserved? Is it sitting somewhere to look at? Is it here in the building, right? And so that's just an example, but there's certainly other examples like looking at Artemis Ward House or his materials that he has behind it. Is it preserved? Looking at the cemeteries, any needs over there. Looking at any historical homes that date back from their earliest time period, maybe the first house. So just getting ideas. Certainly, this is just an ideas generation, and using the anniversary as a mechanism to just say, hey, let's look at our town. Look at our opportunities here. We have finally a funding opportunity. Come with ideas, right? And certainly, I'm just spitballing some ideas right now, right? You probably have more, right? And others outside probably have others to look at our past, but also the future, saying, what do we want to do another 100 years from now, right? What do we want to do to set up for the next generation, whether it be preserving that open space so that it's always there in our community, right? Very key open space lots that, if it was gone, it's gone. But if we do something about it now, here's a way to keep it for hundreds of years forward, right? So that's certainly, I think, an opportunity to leverage the anniversary to highlight community needs and try to meet them over time. Any thoughts about the anniversary or leveraging that as our marketing in some
Sounds like a
way?
great idea
Great
to me.
idea.
It reminds me of, I was involved in some library fundraising, and somebody told us, whatever you do, just tie it to the nearest holiday. So we had Valentine fundraising stuff that year. This was years ago. But yeah, so along those same ideas, people are already going to be thinking about it, and you might as well, hitch on. Good plan.
Thank you. And
Has there been any conversation at the town level as far as a celebration, or is it still too early to be going that direction? I mean, 5 years goes by pretty fast.
I know we have planning in our title for planning department, but party planning is actually.
Party planning is not, I remember that the 275th, the Spirit of Shrewsbury was very much involved in that whole process, and, that was the groundswell of volunteers for that anniversary celebration. So maybe we have to start working on that to get the community rallying, and CPA can be a big part of that, or CPC can be a big part of that. But it takes a lot of people and a lot of planning, because I was part of that 275th, and it's a lot of work. And it doesn't hurt to start now. So you're right on target. At least start organizing. So people out there, if they're interested, maybe they should start getting groups together to, start planning whatever section you're in. I mean, it could go beyond historical aspects as well. It could be a big celebration.
The wood turtle.
Huh? The wood turtle, yes.
Bring
We'll have to find them first.
some in.
all right. So, just to clarify, I'm not suggesting that CPC is taking up the mantle of
No,
celebrating
no,
for the
no.
whole plan, but leveraging this anniversary as an opportunity to say
Yes.
what projects can fit there, and because projects will take years to get.
Right.
We have a year to prepare for, and then fund, and then create. If we can start planting the seeds now of ideas, so that perhaps there's something that's relatively around 300 years, right? 2 years before it, or a year before, it's like, hey, look, we in celebration of our anniversary, we preserved the charter as an example, if that was still around, or we preserved XYZ, we preserved this land, we built affordable housing to keep Shrewsbury residents living in Shrewsbury, right? So there's
Another 300 years.
so just an idea. So anything else? Any other thoughts about the anniversary, or any other topic at this point, as we close down our meeting? Jim?
All good. Thank you, Jason. Thumbs up. Yep.
All right. Well, Jim, hopefully you feel better, and with speedy recovery. It looks like we are a wrap, so we'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. No, okay. Nobody said no. Adjourned.
Thanks.
He's a great gal.